Welcome back everyone to a brand new SkillCapped video. In this one, we'll be breaking down 10 new Korean builds that are extremely strong yet very underrated. Every build we feature is either being played by a Korean pro or has a very high win rate in Korean high elo, so you can be sure every setup is legit. But before we get into it, be sure to check out SkillCapped if you want to truly get better at League of Legends. We're the only service that offers a money-back guarantee if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our service. We do this because our service really does work, and if it doesn't work for you, you shouldn't pay. Learn more at the end of this video or click the link in the description. Alright, let's get started. A top laner you need to be abusing the reworked Stridebreaker on is Aatrox. The buffed up slow on Stridebreaker active synergizes tremendously well with Aatrox's kit. Being a spellcasting bruiser, Aatrox relies heavily on landing his Q in order to win out on trades. If the enemy is slowed by 90%, it becomes so much easier to hit every single Q, as you'll be able to stick onto the enemy like molasses. The cooldown is now extremely low on the Stride active as well, which means it's almost always available when your rotation of spells come back up. Building Black Cleaver second and running Lucidity boots provides you with 65 haste and will drop the Stride active down to 9 seconds. The stats don't lie either. Over in Korea, players who rush Stridebreaker are winning 56% of the time compared to Gore Drinker at 52%. Sterix will be the third item to round out your core build. For runes, take Conqueror with Triumph, Tenacity, and Last Stand. Resolve secondary is the most optimal, running Second Wind and Revitalize. Urgot relied more on the Stridebreaker dash than most champs due to his lack of consistent mobility. As a result, Stride is performing quite poorly, but a new rush item in Hullbreaker has started taking over. Urgot really needed that dash on Stride to be able to function in teamfights, so this new Hullbreaker setup is all about being a menace in the side lane. Your 1v1 power is nuts as you gain bonus armor and magic resist. Demolishing towers is a breeze due to the 20% bonus tower damage and enhanced damage from cannon minions. The stats really back this one up as well. Hullbreaker is the most common rush item on Urgot in Korea, and it also wins over 3% more than Titanic and a whopping 5% more than Stride. Stride does still perform quite well as a second purchase on Urgot, and then your third item is the brand new Anathema's Chains. Hullbreaker and Anathemas provides you with the ultimate split push combo, which makes you impossible to beat in the 1v1. Rune-wise, grab Press the Attack with Triumph, Tenacity, and Last Stand. The best secondaries are Bone Plating and Overgrowth. An extremely obnoxious build that works wonders on Tryndamere revolves around a Stridebreaker rush into Essence Reaver second. This one is starting to see quite a bit of traction over in Korea, and for good reason. Tryndamere is 100% reliant on being up in the enemy's face, whacking away at them with autos in order to deal damage. As long as you can stick onto the enemy, then there's no issues at all beating opponents up in the 1v1, and that's where Stridebreaker comes in. The dash from E allows you to close the gap onto the enemy, and then while you're on top of them, you activate the 90% slow and start slapping with crits. The slow from W combined with the slow from Stridebreaker gives the enemy very little counterplay or ways to escape once you're on top of them. Essence Reaver second provides some nice upfront burst and extra ability haste, which is a stat Trynd really likes. Once you complete Navori Quick Blades as your third item, in total you'll have 70 haste, which drops Trynd's E cooldown to 4.8 seconds. Keep in mind, Tryndamere E cooldown is reduced by 2 seconds whenever he crits, so as long as you're not super unlucky, you'll have close to perma uptime on E when dueling. Lethal Tempo is your keystone with Triumph, Alacrity, and Last Stand. Grab Resolve for secondaries, opting for Second Wind and Unflinching. Our next setup is one being spammed in solo queue by Korean jungle pro Yosik. Phase Rush Poppy Jungle with an Anathema's Chains as a core item is what we're looking at. Phase Rush opens up stronger gank power and is extremely reliable on Poppy due to how simple it is to proc. Poppy passive combined with E and Q can be used in a very quick succession, so you'll see great value out of Phase Rush throughout the game. The complete rune page is Phase Rush with Nimbus Cloak, Celerity, and Water Walking. Secondaries are Triumph and Tenacity. Anathemas is a really great third purchase, as you'll place the active on whichever carry is most fed on the enemy team to nullify so much of their damage in teamfights. If you're unaware, the Anathema's passive provides you with up to 30% reduced damage from one enemy of your choice. The entire setup allows you to dive into fights, zoom around with a ton of move speed, and take very minimal damage while being an annoying disruptor. While we're on the topic of Anathema's Chains, a jungler who's very underrated with the item is Sejuani. Sej reaps even more benefits than most champs by building Anathemas since she has max health scaling on her W damage. Anathemas provides you with 650 health, and if you stack a Warmogs on top of that as well, it's super nasty. The build of Frostfire Gauntlet or Sunfire Aegis Rush into Anathema's second and Warmog's third is proving to be extremely potent. The second passive on Anathemas, where the enemy you mark has 20% reduced tenacity, makes Sej's pick potential even better. Your ability to lock down that priority target and take them out becomes so much more consistent when you got Anathemas. The complete rune page will be Aftershock with Font of Life, Conditioning, and Overgrowth. Pick up Precision Secondary with Triumph and Alacrity. We just recently featured a new build of Frozen Heart into Riftmaker on Kassadin last patch, and there's a very similar one starting to pop off on Ryze. Instead of rushing Frozen Heart like you would on Kassadin, you'll grab Riftmaker first and transition into Frozen Heart second. Even though you won't be building Archangels until third, you still want to grab a tier and get that stacking. The whole idea behind the setup is to turn Ryze into the ultimate battle mage. The sustain and health from Riftmaker combined with all the armor from Frozen Heart makes it very difficult for enemies to take you down and lets you thrive in extended fights. Ryze wants to be in the middle of a fight taking advantage of his spammable abilities, so this build synergizes quite nicely. Even though Frozen Heart isn't your typical mage item, it's so great for Ryze since you get a lot of mana, some haste, and a ton of armor to shut down heavy AD comps. After all the buffs it received, Frozen Heart is just so cost efficient, which is why you're seeing it built so much more. The complete core build is Riftmaker into Frozen Heart and then Archangels third. Roll with Phase Rush as the keystone, followed by Mana Flow, Transcendence, and Gathering Storm. Secondaries are Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter. Ziggs bot lane is pretty insane right now, and a new build you'll want to be spamming is Liandry's Rush into Demonic Embrace. The more popular setup in western regions is Ludens into Archangels, but almost every Korean Ziggs is playing Liandry's into Demonic. The item combo works so well due to all the max health damage stacking. On your 2-item completion, when your ability lands, you have 2.2% max health every second over 4 seconds. So many champions in the meta for top lane and jungle are health stacking champs. Nocturne, Lee Sin, Xin Zhao, and Viego are the most played junglers, while picks like Set, Camille, and Riven are highly contested top laners. Every single one of these champions builds at least one health item, which gives this new Ziggs build lots of value. Complete build is Liandry's Rush into Demonic Embrace second and Zhonya's third. The rune page is Comet with Mana Flow, Transcendence, and Scorch. Pick up Inspiration secondary, running Freeboots and Biscuits. A really unique Samira build being played by former Korean pro Arrow is a Stridebreaker Rush. If there's one marksman who can thrive with the new Stridebreaker, it's definitely Samira. Samira is one of the few marksmen who thrives when up close in the middle of a fight. The bonus that Samira receives when playing in melee range is the reason for this. Building Stridebreaker provides you with 400 health, so you're much more difficult to take down. The Stride active offers so much value since Samira wants to keep the enemies inside her ult range, and the 90% slow enables that perfectly. If you're snowballing early on, this build works wonders as you can dive in aggressively and prevent the enemy from having any chance of escaping. Complete build is Stridebreaker into the Collector and Bloodthirster. Runes are very standard with Conqueror as the keystone, followed by Presence of Mind, Bloodline, and Coup de Grace. Run Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter for secondaries. Moving on to a couple support builds, we have a new carry-oriented setup for Yuumi that consists of a Ludens Tempest Rush. The cost reduction of 200 gold is really what's making the item a much more enticing pickup. We're seeing many Korean pros exclusively spamming Ludens on Yuumi in solo queue after the buffs. All the bonus mana is really nice on Yuumi as it allows her to spam abilities so much more freely. Of course, the added damage Ludens brings is a big upside as well, as it allows you to capitalize on pick plays much easier. If you're ahead in lane and are looking to snowball, then Ludens is the optimal purchase. In games where you're behind and don't have the luxury of a solid gold income, then building Shirelias or Moonstone are both completely viable too. Stat-wise, all items have almost identical win rates for solo queue, so there really isn't a bad purchase at the moment. Sample full build is Ludens into Chemtech Putrefier and Staff of Flowing Water. Take Summon Ares the keystone with Mana Flow, Transcendence, and Scorch. Presence of Mind and Cut Down work best for secondaries. It's time to unbench the Kench, as he's seeing some buffs for 11.14, and there's a new build flying heavily under the radar. Anathema's Chains as a second purchase is the unique aspect of the build that very few players have caught on to. Tahm, E, and Passive both have max health scaling, so you gain really good value from the 650 bonus health. Not only that, but the ability to extend the CC duration from Q and W helps to lock down your target way better. The item is relatively cheap as well at only 2,500 gold, which is super nice for a support since it's much more difficult to generate income. All in all, Anathema's Tahm is very underrated, so don't sleep on it. The full build consists of a Locket Rush into Anathema's second and Knight's Vow third. Grab Guardian as the keystone with Font of Life, Bone Plating, and Unflinching. Best secondaries are Biscuits and Approach Velocity. Alright guys, before we wrap this up, let's tell you a little more about SkillCapped. So, we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and think that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's kind of like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped. Your local gym would go bust if they ordered that, right? Not us. We've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium league guides on the internet. We add over 20 videos a week, with over 1,600 guides curated into over 100 courses no one can compare. We've also sent Challenger players into ELO Hell 629 times and counting, where they commentate how to carry live. They also respond to all questions asked. Sign up today for as little as $4.99 a month if you're serious about improving. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.